right, episode 132. Look, home buyers are saying this is the worst time to buy a house. We're going to break that down right now. Like we're fading.
See, like right there.
Yeah, we just faded.
That's abrupt. It's very abrupt.
All right, episode 132. Look, home buyers are saying, they're saying this is the worst time to buy a house since 1929. We've actually just interviewed someone from that.
We did. Yeah, we just had some. You guys missed him.
Yeah,
we was on.
We Skyped them in. So
here it is.
All right. So if you've not listened to this show before, right? If you've not gone back and joined our Facebook group, go join the only real estate group worth being a part of, as well as go support our sponsors, which is Mortgage Mike. So Mortgage Mike of Texas. If you're looking for a great Texas loan officer, go check him out. And the property management company of Dallas Fort Worth. It's the official, unofficial property management company of them.
It's official.
Official, unofficial,
yeah,
unofficial.
The mayor even said so.
That's right. So go to homewarddfw.com. It was the mayor of Homeward.
The mayor of North Texas.
So if you're looking for a great property manager, go check it out. Do it right now. Do it. All right. Episode 132. Look, home buyers are saying, they're saying this is the worst time to buy. And a lot of this, we're looking at a lot of articles right here, and a lot of it is saying because interest rates are going up. I'm going to tell you right now, I don't think it's because of that.
Okay. So that's a hot. God, I look like pure sex in this camera. I get the good camera. God, you guys get the old handy cams, and I just get this beautiful Sony. What is it, Jesse?
A6400.
A6400. You can see every pore on my face. What were we talking about again? No, I'm just kidding. First of all, when they say home buyers, like we're reading some articles right now, like home buyers say it's the worst time to buy. First of all, how does every listing get 50 offers and yet home buyers are saying it's the worst time to buy a house? Were you just talking to people at the grocery store?
No,
what sample size of home buyers are we talking about?
It's the losers that didn't get the house.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
That's what happens.
Yeah. I
the
guarantee
losers you it's the worst time to win the Super Bowl.
The Cincinnati Bengals are saying that's the worst time to play the Super Bowl.
Didn't even want it this year.
They called no penalties until the end of the game. So obviously this is the worst time. Right? So but those articles that we're going to kind of reference that we're talking about or really using as our reference today, a lot of it is pointing because interest rates are rising.
Yes.
Yeah. Look, it's not because of that. It's because home prices have exploded up so quickly that our minds haven't caught up to pricing, right? So there's it kind of goes back to, like, I remember when my brother and I were buying houses in the colony. So in the colony right up the road from us, we were buying houses during the foreclosure, during the recession, and we were picking these up for $40,000 or $50,000.
Man, those little just straight 8-block stack blocks.
Yes, they're little
Fox
they're
boom,
little 3-2,
boom, yeah.
little 3-2, 1 or 2 car garages. We were picking those up for $40,000 or $50,000. I remember when they hit $75,000, Austin's like, this is overpriced. Yeah. Today, those are going for like $350,000 to $400,000, right? But our minds were like, we like to stay in the past, and this is what home buyers are still facing, because they're looking at how quickly home prices are going up. Maybe their income hasn't gone up as quickly or at all.
Yep.
We're still kind of having PTSD from the 2008 depression,
or
recession.
Repression.
Yeah, it was definitely depressing.
That was pretty repressive too.
Yeah, right. So that's where I think to me, it's like, are they even rates? I don't think have anything to play into it right now.
Well, and
really?
I think one of the things too in the article references the home purchaser sentiment index or something like that Fannie Mae. It's one of those polls that people put out, right? Like, and Fannie Mae put this one out, and it's talking about it, the buyer sentiment being down. This I can understand, right? Like, just talking to people and being in comment sections more than I should be.
Yeah.
You do hear a lot of people talking about exactly what Nick's talking about, being completely priced out of the market.
Yes.
The whole bottom's going to fall out of this, right? Like, whether it's fact-based or not, I do believe that buyer sentiment is like, fuck this, right? Like,
buyer sentiment, yes.
Yes. But I don't know, again, the article is saying it's the worst market to buy in ever.
Okay, well, all right, so that is fair.
If you bought 18 months ago, would you think this was the worst market? Like that seemed pretty dire 18 months ago, and I would have loved to have bought 18 months.
Let's give credit where credit's due, though. The article does say
do you have that?
Buyers think it's the worst time to buy a home. So I do want to give a little credit where credit's due and not judge the people of, I'm sorry, housing, whoever does the consumer buying sentiment index, which is so bananas. I think if you just put the word index at the end of anything and make it sound official.
100 people.
Home buyers, okay, this is the headline. Home buyers say it's the worst time ever to buy a house. Okay, so that is fair, and I do want to give credit where credit's due. That's not saying that experts are saying it's the worst time to buy a house. Do you know, and I don't mean this to be rude, this is why we exist in this world. So I think this is a little bit of a notch in our belt because we are bona fide real estate
This
experts.
is also by Fannie Mae's good time to buy metric.
Yeah.
Right?
Sure.
So what, all right. So
all I'm trying to say is, who is the worst judge of when it is a good time to buy a house? Normally consumers. I don't mean that to be mean. I mean that's why they rely on fiduciaries.
And I didn't read this all the way because I don't think it referenced 2010.
TLDR.
No.
But, so in 2009 and 2010, were home buyers saying it's a great time to buy or a bad time to buy?
Oh, 100% saying bad time to buy.
Yes.
Probably
Okay.
pumped about it.
Okay. So is there ever really, so when are they ever going to say it's a great time to buy? Because if they're telling me it's a great time to buy, I'm actually like, all right, it's probably not the best time.
Bro, the freaking world could be burning down around us and you could be literally like getting a free home as a toy in a McDonald's Happy Meal, and there'd still be people be like, I'm waiting for it to go lower, man. The real crash is coming. I feel like
I want the Big Mac.
Yeah,
instead.
people always think it's the worst time to buy. If you just talk straight up to people,
Well,
people are inherent skeptics.
We deal with this a lot in real estate where people are waiting for the market to fall out, and we constantly feel like we're having to have this uphill. I had a guy tell me the other day, he's like, I'm just going to wait for interest rates to go up so there's not so many buyers in the market. And I was like, what the hell? Right? Like,
There's two sides to that coin.
there are two sides to the coin. I understand chasing buyers out of the market might make less competition, but the correlation between interest rates going up and you getting a deal on a house, which I think is what a lot of people are thinking is going to happen, those don't seem to match up in my mind, right? Like,
Sure.
Especially here in DFW, are you going to time the market so perfectly, right, that you can time where interest rates are going to be best for you and right before the market starts to crater a little bit or balance out?
Let me ask you this question. So I would have asked that gentleman. I'd say, so with interest rates going up and less buyers buying during that time, right? Theoretically, that's what he's saying.
Yeah.
It's going to knock some people out. Now, are we already knocking out the people that were on the edge in the first place, that were in the marketplace, and they were one of the 50 offers being made, but there was actually zero chance that they were going to get accepted?
Sure.
Right? So we're only knocking people out that really had very slim chances of getting an offer accepted.
I think the people who are losing the most in this market, though, are people who are not sitting on a ton of cash. Like
Correct.
that is the biggest problem right now. People who could buy in a neutral market under a regular 3.5% FHA, like those are the buyers getting mauled right now because they can't put the money down. And that's why I think when it goes back to talking about buyer sentiment, it's dead on. And that's the majority of people, right? The majority of people we deal with. I don't think people realize this. And I know a lot of agents listen to this, but make sure that you're telling your clients when they're coming to you or talking about this stuff, dude, most people are putting less than 5% down or less, right? You don't have many clients coming in with 10, 20% down on average. And I don't think people understand that. And the buyers who are sitting on 3.5%, and that's all they have, who could be a homeowner in a normal situation, are the ones losing out in this market, right? We talked about some of the people who are like the Brian referred, and this was not the FHA buyers, but the buyers who are on life support at every price point, right? Yes. Everybody's going to get bumped down. The problem is as prices rise, there's a certain price point now that just almost doesn't exist specifically in DFW anymore, right? And how do you go out and get a job that pays more to make up that gap? Home ownership has for real ended for some people. Like in DFW, you can move further out, things like that. I'm not saying there aren't alternatives, but there are price points that no longer exist here.
Yeah, for sure. And this is where we just need to start unpacking things, because I hate the idea that home ownership just doesn't exist in certain areas for some people, because that's such a more of an indictment of the economic standards
100%.
as a whole of that area. But that is like where we should unpack, especially this. I think this article touches on a lot of like really key points that people are missing, and it doesn't even touch on them purposely. So I think as we unpack this, there's a few key questions that we really need to ask, right? And really ask and then discuss, and then kind of come up with why they are that way and what they mean for the future. So like, Why are people saying it is the worst time to buy a home right now? This article kind of hints at a couple of things, right? Like skyrocketing home prices and now increased interest rates. The first part of this article talks about how rates got above 4% again. Okay. So why does that make it the worst time to buy a home right now? I was actually real quick.
Okay.
No,
I
I
that's why that was
because I want to unpack it. I have my opinion.
I do too, and I'll jump off of that.
Okay.
Sometimes, we talk about this sometimes. Sometimes Brian will Bob Sturm us, and he'll ask a question. And if you're a
As soon
local,
as I
if you're a
start
fan
a
of the
sentence-
ticket, I'm always like, is he going to answer his own question?
Yeah.
Here's what I think it is, right? And just from a data perspective, what I can see, if when we're talking about the people anybody who is borderline on a price point or borderline on a market specifically, as the home prices went up and then the interest rates go up, it kills them twice, right? Because there's no more extra money with it, which the interest rates is taking extra money monthly, right? You're in a market where you have to have extra cash down to even compete and go appraised value, and those loan products don't necessarily allow that. Every part of their purchase starts breaking down just specifically because there's not enough cash on the sidelines to compete in the market.
Okay, so is it fair to say that it's a really difficult and maybe the wrong time to buy a home if you are entirely dependent on low interest rates and having enormous cash reserves?
Sure, but I always think you would be in trouble in almost any scenario. Those people would have been in trouble if they lost their job or if there was some sort of major medical issue. Like that would have come crashing down for sure. But they would at least still been able to realize home ownership, right? Like, but I remember being able in 2015. I had more FHA clients probably in 2015 and 2016 than I had in the rest of my entire career. And I don't know why that market, maybe it was because I was selling condos to first-time homebuyers and it just worked out that way.
Yeah.
But I feel like the idea of somebody, when are FHA, and I hope I'm not breaking any rules by talking about certain loan products, but when are FHAs going to be really viable loan products in the market again? And are we the only ones seeing this? Because I feel like this can't be every market.
I think that actually goes to what you were kind of just saying before, though. FHA loan products will be relevant again. I still think they are in some regards. Like you just said something that I think is relevant to that exact conversation, in that when I said, it's probably a bad time for people that need a low interest rate just to be able to get their like DTI and stuff right, and need huge cash reserves. Those people would still be hit hard by a major medical expense. I'm talking more so about the people that interest rate is the only thing getting them approved on like a DTI, regard.
You mean like a higher interest rate?
Sure.
Yeah.
Like a lower interest rate is the only thing getting them approved. Yeah. And those same types of people might not home ownership might not be the right move for them right now. But if they had a major medical expense, they may have other things like a 401k they would liquidate to meet their deductible, and they're going to have coverage through their job and things like that. Yeah. Like there are tens of millions of people out there that probably can't make the jump to buy their first home just yet. But if they had a major medical expense, their benefits through their job would have a lot of coverage of that, and they'd have to meet a deductible and then maybe some after that. But they would probably have other assets that they could make liquid a lot more quickly than you could make a house liquid, like your retirement and things like that, which you never want to see someone have to do, but they would be able to get through. So mentally, you don't think around a major medical expense the same way you think around, and so I say that those are probably the same type of people that would use an FHA product if it was in any way competitive in this market. So I think that almost answers your question in the sense that whenever it is viable again for people that don't need crazy cash reserves to go $50,000 all guaranteed over asking price, whenever that market goes away where like that isn't something you have to do to get a house, it's probably the same time that FHA comes back and that buying demographic has a chance. Now the higher interest rates are going to be difficult for them, but higher than what? Higher than the lowest interest rates ever? Guys, interest rates are not that high right now. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like
when I was doing, like when I first started really selling it in 2007, I mean, we were at 6.25, 6.5. Heck, I want to say that I even remember a client or two touching 7. Right.
Yeah.
And so we could flirt with maybe 5s, low 5 or right at 5 by year's end, assuming that we don't go backwards in the economy or the government doesn't try to mess with anything. Right. Because we have to get inflation under control.
100%.
And so the number one thing that, they got to get inflation under control. Typically, when they try to mess with this, we usually go into a little bit of a recession. So the question is going to be, if we go into any type of recession pullback, how soon or what does our economy or what does your local economy look like? Because I don't want to just make this about Dallas or DFW.
Yeah.
What would happen here? Because look, we've still got not even 1 month of inventory. So we would have to see a flood of homes coming on in the next 18 months for us to even get remotely back to a balanced market.
Yeah.
Or does a balanced market now move from 6 months to 4 months?
Yeah, I mean, look, I think what you would consider a balanced market probably is a lower amount of inventory than what it was considered in the past. Jesse, pull this article back up, because this speaks to kind of exactly what you were just saying, which drives me crazy. I think we get so short-sighted, and we're just looking at the mirror right in front of us, that we forget so many variables that come into play here. Go down a little bit to that Freddie Mac economist quote. I don't even know who this guy is, but I already don't like him. I think it's right.
Is this the same article?
Which article are you looking at?
I was looking at the last one that you sent us. No, I think it's that one in your bottom left.
The mortgage rates blow past industry predictions.
Yeah. That one in your bottom left there. And there's a quote in there. Here we go. Thank you. Yeah. Is it really the worst? No, not that one. This one. Yeah. It's this one. And so, you're going to share that one for me. Thank you.
Yep.
So in this article, there was a quote that really stood out to me. It was from a director, chief economist, or Freddie. I don't know what it is, dude. It just sounded like a fancy title. Essentially, and I want to get this right, so let's scroll down here. All right, let's go down past the picture, or past that little video. Here we go. Bad news. This is a real adult that said this. Bad news for the general economy is paradoxically good for the housing market insofar as rates would decline. Man, I don't know, like a dumber thing that Len Kiefer could say. We're living this reality right now, Len, and I don't know how much more clear it could be in an article that is literally adjacent on the same website to buyer sentiment is at an all-time low and buyers think it's the worst time to buy a house. You're saying that bad news for the general economy is paradoxically good for the housing market insofar as rates would decline. This is the most short-sighted. This is why when you just go to school and you get titled like economist or something like that, but you don't have any real world, it's so stupid. Okay, let me explain this to you. What is good or what is bad for the general economy is not good for the housing market in any way, shape, or form. We are seeing this right now. People that can only afford a house because of a certain interest rate are, for the most parts, the first ones losing out on all of these deals because a couple of things have happened, right? If I have super low interest rates and we are 2 years removed from the beginning of a global pandemic, which we, as far as new construction and inventory levels go, we are really just now starting to see the true ripple effects of. New construction starts are still, what is it, a million behind or something like that? Man, it's ridiculous. Yeah. So you think that 2020 and 2021 were tough for new construction? We're still a few years out of the weeds when it comes to supply chains. And so what I mean by that is inventory doesn't have the ability to continue to creep up. Okay, and so the people who are in advantageous positions are the ones with cash on the sidelines that already have assets like homesteads that go, you know what, I was thinking about moving and I can get 50 offers on my home right now and I can lock in a 3.2% interest rate. I'm going to move and 1 million of my friends are going to move as well. And everybody who is going to buy their first home, even if they have a low interest rate, can't compete with me. And so it's shitty for most home buyers out there, even with low interest rates. And low interest rates are usually an indication of higher inflation, meaning consumer goods and normal goods and services are more expensive. Wages stagnate. And so if my wages stagnate, I can't make enough money to afford the home that is increasing by 12 to 25% every single year because interest rates are low, and that is pushing home prices higher. It's actually not fucking true at all, Len. Low interest, or what is bad for the economy is paradoxically good for the housing market is the dumbest thing I've ever heard. Like, this is such a short-sighted, stupid thing for someone from Freddie Mac to say. And so I think that's why buyers are feeling that this is the toughest time or the worst time to buy a home right now, is because most of the people who are winning out in these situations already have homes. They're moving by choice because that's what's pushing them over the fence is low interest rates and asset prices skyrocketing, and they want to get while the getting is good. It's the everyday person who's just trying to buy their first or second home or their move-up home that's missing out, and low interest rates are not helping them, Len, you goof.
No, but look, lending guidelines and standards are going to have to change eventually, right? So
They change every 5 years.
but one of the thought process, yes, but one of the thought processes is that eventually you'll start seeing lenders where they're not, and it kind of is this way anyway, which it didn't make any sense. They should have just structured it this way in the first place, is that as a home buyer, you just straight up make your offer cash, right? There's plenty of Homeward does it. Is it Blue Ribbon? I think it is.
Yeah.
That you're coming in, you're making cash offers, and then
Sure.
realistically behind it, it's not. It's a temporary.
Well, yeah.
It's transactional funding to then get to be able to compete in a marketplace like this.
Sure.
And will that become somewhat of the norm, where it's transactional funding that then gets you into?
So let me. I think we could both agree on this. I'm sorry to cut you off. It can't possibly become the norm. Why wouldn't it be able to become the norm? Because if it became the norm, then it becomes a saturated use of that market, and then it just becomes lending.
Correct.
You can't. If everybody's using one of these companies to offer cash, then nobody has an edge over anybody. It's the same thing as getting a mortgage.
It's the same thing as if we could just get everybody
Yeah.
to agree one day just to put their house. Everybody was scared to put their house on the market. Like if we just have a national listing day where it's like everybody who was scared to put their house on the market, we all just agree to do it this day.
Right.
Now, as a seller, I'd be like, hell no, I'm not going to go up against 50 other houses. I want to be the only one on the market. Like
Yeah.
I understand why it doesn't work for all parties.
Well, it wouldn't work if it became mainstream.
That's my whole point is
Yeah.
it just wouldn't work because it would stop working.
Or
because
Because everyone's doing it.
the reason it's the way it is because it's broken.
Well, the reason that it's working right now is because there's only a certain subset of the market that's doing this. Homeward, there's a couple more. If you had 50 offers on your house and all 50 of them were using transactional funding, then it wouldn't be an advantage. It would just be the same as having a lender.
But how do you know that it's transactional funding or not? So again, because right now you're getting 50, 60 offers, and what would the percentage of cash offers to financing is what?
Over time, it
It's
would just turn into.
I don't know what the percentage. It's higher than it's been before.
Correct.
But it's still not the majority of the offers.
In
The majority are
so
still
in August of 2021, 35% of offers. This was in a article that I got from NAR yesterday, when it was obviously written back in August of 2021. 35. The peak was like 35% of all offers at that time were cash.
Yeah. Okay.
Right. So I would venture to say that has increased probably 5 percentage points.
All right, so let me ask you this, just from a tactical standpoint. When you submit one of those offers, whose logo is on the proof of funds? Is this like you submit a Homeward proof of funds?
Probably. I mean, it's coming from a bank, so
Yeah.
possibly.
So it would like the free market would just weed all of the competitors out, right? Like if you started doing all of that and you go like, how do you know it's a cash offer back buy or whatever? It'd be the same as if I do a financed offer. It would end up being the same thing as Supreme Lending versus Rocket Mortgage.
Correct.
Like the competitors who did a good job would just.
But if there's no difference in it, if it's coming from that, there's no difference. Then again,
eventually there would be a difference though, because they would have to compete against one another, and some would be better than others.
The only way that you're competing would be is are you able to maybe have because this goes into maybe more private funding practices, are they going to be more lenient on appraisals coming in?
Yeah,
right? Because
and
that's what ends up right now. While we were going through the run up, and we're still experiencing some of this now, is the choking point is not interest rates. It's not cash buyers. Your choking point eventually is the appraisal on it, because the appraisers still use lagging numbers, which are previous comp sales. And then what's fighting in this industry is you've got the iBuyer programs that are future casting, where they think the puck is going in terms of home prices. That's the reason why iBuyers are making what we call ridiculous offers. And
I think they might even call them ridiculous offers. Open Door lost $421 million last year.
Was it Open Door or Zillow?
Zillow lost more.
Yeah, Zillow.
Zillow lost $880 million.
But again, is Open Door? Are they crying at that right now, or are they playing the long game the way Amazon was losing money in the beginning?
Well, but they flip those homes, so they don't have the assets anymore.
I understand that, but they've got the mortgage, they've got other things. Then there's other things that they're keeping within.
Hell of a pace to have to keep up.
When you're,
I would agree.
When you're playing with house money.
Sure,
or,
and
or
look,
when you're playing
I'm not,
when you're playing with Wall Street.
Wall
and-
Street's money.
Yeah,
And
with
look, and
funny money.
I'm not smart enough to understand like what the intricacies of this stuff are, but I would think that I'd be a lot more comfortable with almost $1 billion in losses if I still had the assets themselves, because those are tangible and appreciate historically. But man, they've got to make up a lot of lost revenue.
Well, eventually. I mean,
Eventually.
or they just
Or
let
just
it go.
or they could just go out
Again,
of business and start something
They
new.
keep selling shares and they offer more stock.
It's not their money.
Yeah, I don't think they're going out of business.
No,
yeah,
They're definitely not going out of business.
Yeah, but the question will continue to be is I mean, we're not going to see again a balanced market for a very, very long time, and homeowners are because the cost to acquire land is skyrocketing up. I talked to an appraiser yesterday. He's like, "Hey, tell me what's going on in these markets like Van Alstyne." He's like, we're seeing prices in 12 months go from $17,000 an acre to $35,000
Yeah.
an acre, and we're not seeing that slow down. I'm like, dude, the cost to acquire is going up. The cost of development's going up. And so eventually that's a choking point, because you as a builder developer or the builder developers going in there are not going to be able to pass that on to consumers, because eventually consumers are going to be like, I can't afford that.
Yeah.
Right. Unless we're doing 100-year mortgages. Right. So that may be ultimately that.
Is a 40-year mortgage is the next thing.
So
California's
doing it.
standard, yeah.
So we aren't seeing that here. So maybe as
They're
someone's
the primary product in Canada.
Is there something?
Is that right? I said that with so much confidence.
Yeah.
And I
I believed you too.
I know enough about how home loans are structured to know the bank gets the majority of their money in the first part of it. But the banks start getting into a really dangerous place if loans get too long just by sheer die off? Like, because I get you can attach the debt to the family or the debt to the whatever, right? But like at the end of the day, somebody still has to repay some of these notes. I know they can still sell the tangible asset like Brian was talking about, but is there any risk to the bank to just like starting to stretch these loans out more and more just because the odds of somebody dying while they're in a loan becomes more and more probable?
Oh, man. So the intricacies, that one, first of all, is 35-year in Canada. They got rid of the 40-year in 2008, which is actually the answer to your question.
There you go.
The bank, the lender versus the bank,
yeah.
right? The lender doesn't have a whole lot of clout, this, right? This is why 40-year mortgages got lost in the fray in 2008, and a lot of this reshuffling in the Canadian banking industry. The lender makes the loan, the servicer takes the loan and sells it to normally a large bank in the form of a mortgage-backed security, right? And it's also insurance companies that buy those and things like that. So, major Wall Street banks, if we continue to elongate the length of loans simply because it's more affordable, you're going to run into a couple of factors. One, you're going to run into a scenario where people are buying homes that they can't afford simply because their mortgage payment is low because it's elongated over such a large period of time. And then if you run into something like, I don't know, say a period of very high inflation, right, where the rest of life becomes more expensive, and you have a lot of people holding on to assets they probably couldn't afford in the first place, and all of a sudden they can't afford to pay their mortgage, then they're left stuck, holding the bag. Also, you're talking about a 40-year mortgage, which gives you literally 30% longer for that person to get into a state, and this is morbid, but a state in their life where they have no longer a vested interest in paying that mortgage, right? And if you stack that up millions and millions of times, but you sell off those mortgages in the form of mortgage-backed securities, you are creating a bubble in and of itself. 40-year mortgages, when you talk about the average lifespan of a homeowner, they're not particularly smart things to create, right? Like we already talked about on the show a few weeks ago, like the average male was 34 and the average female was 31, first time home buyer.
Yeah.
We're talking about people that would pick out their first mortgage and not pay it off until they're in their mid 70s. That's even if they don't refi.
Go look at the average
That's
age
a
of
risky
death in America
investment. Yes.
because it's about late 70s, right? So, and I know nobody keeps their first home for even let's not say nobody. The majority of people are not in their home through the life of that.
Yeah, but it doesn't mean
If
I
it
can't
makes
take
it-
out a 40-year on my second home.
Right? But yeah, you sure could.
Yeah, so if it makes it more affordable in the beginning, maybe you restructure your finances, start saving a little bit. You don't have as much. You go back to maybe what we felt as a normal market in Texas, which the average appreciation was around 3 to 5% at that time, right?
Yeah.
So you start seeing that, you factor that in, plus you weren't transferring typically a lot of equity into your second home.
Yeah.
So it almost go back to that a little bit,
Yeah.
right? So you're going back to maybe rebalancing, reshifting, because eventually what's going to end up happening is you're going to have the younger generation, the 15 to 20 year olds, they're not going to be able to afford a house. They're living with mom and dad longer. They're not going to be able to afford even rent. So they're going to house hack, or they're going to have to go rent hack, which, have multiple roommates and stuff like that. And so they're not building wealth. And so if we're going to say that the transfer of wealth is now no longer real estate, it's going to be, go listen to episode 131 with the crypto stuff that we're still learning, then that could be the next wave. But if we want to keep the real estate market or real estate industry as a wealth building tool,
home ownership still has to be an opportunity.
100%.
It needs to be. And these articles and just like these conversations in general, we talk about them. We have a habit of talking about them as if like the mirror that's standing 2 inches in front of us is going to be the mirror that's sitting there for the rest of our lives, right? Like we will get back to a balanced market, right? When you talk about 15 to 20-year-olds not being able to
guarantee that?
I guarantee at some point we'll cross over. There's never really any such thing as a balanced market, right? Like
It's a swinging pendulum.
bro, look at the recession. The difference between 2007 and 2009. It wasn't like a gradual thing. It was an abrupt collapse of mortgage.
Actually, if you really think about it, typically the markets, that just moves like that. It temporarily stops. This feels like the longest time.
It really
we've
is.
stayed in this where it's like, holy smokes. Like,
Yeah.
we can't get over a month of inventory because everything's just getting gobbled up.
Bro, it took an act of God or possibly a lab leak in China to put us in a situation where we had this elongated of this kind of market. Usually these shifts are much quicker, right?
And it's not fun.
Nobody laughed at that,
No,
right? When you talk about 15 to 20-year-olds not being able to pay their rent, this is actually really good insight as to how things will not always be this way. The reason that rents have increased 14% year over year is very simple. Look at the multifamily space. So let's just say I'm trying to do a value add on a Class B property and turn it into a Class A minus or whatever, right? Or my other investment strategy is to develop a Class A property. Okay. Logistic and supply chains right now are such that it would cost me a GD fortune to build anything from the ground up. Trust me, I know. Trust you. I know you know, right? Right. And with interest rates, interest rates are super low. So more people can afford, more investors could afford to buy Class B properties and just simply renovate them, right? And push rents that way rather than build. And so then what happens? The price of Class B assets tends to go north because there are more buyers in the pool. There's a bigger buying demographic. And then what happens when asset prices go up? Cap rates compress, right? And then rents have to push to make it a viable investment. And that's what's happening to kids who are 15 to 20 right now. The reason they're not going to be able to afford rent is because interest rates are so low. And people are forgetting that we're just now seeing the effects in the multifamily space in a real way of a fucking global pandemic that has killed 1 million people just in the United States alone. And it's like kind of like we forget about that when we're talking about interest rates and things like that. The market will not always be like this. Interest rates are one small factor in a much larger picture. We have 7% inflation right now. We should not have interest rates anywhere near 3% right now. It's terrible for our economy. And despite what dumb Len Kiefer says, what is bad for the economy is not good for the housing market. It's better to have moderate interest rates, moderate to low inflation, and to continue to do what the Federal Reserve does very poorly and toe the fine line between inflation and deflation every 5 years or so. I think we're just discounting the fact that the new construction space, whether it's commercial or single family, is so backed up right now, and the effect that has had itself on rates and what it's done to inventory levels.
Boy, I ain't following that shit. I loved listening to that too, because even just there's understanding for all of us to have in how all of this stuff works together. Because at the end of the day, Damn it. I had been so long since I said it.
At the end of the day,
God. What our jobs are to do for our clients is to understand more than just the basic level nuance and the basic level headline clickbait type of stuff, right? That's what they're going to come to you with, is their fears and concerns, because they don't do this every day. So having a higher level understanding, being able to maybe not go as far as Brian just did, right? But like be able to really understand why certain things are affecting other things, and why. I'm not even saying home ownership is the right choice, just helping your client make the right choice that moves them forward, right?
if you go deep as Brian did, they're just and
No,
you
they're gonna
slide the
shut
buyer's rep.
Yeah,
No, they won't shut up. They'll be like, obviously, this
They'll be
guy
like,
knows what he's talking
Obviously,
about.
we're fine here.
What's good for the goose is good for the gander.
Exactly. Yeah, so go that far for sure. If you're like me, you just having some basic knowledge of this stuff and being able to guide your client through the process is the most important
Just
thing.
to make it super simple, as far as actionable advice, when you're having conversations with your buyer clients and they're saying, dude, I don't know because interest rates are going up, say, look, would you rather pay a normal interest rate and not have to compete with 50 people? Or would you rather pay 3% and have to make 75,000 offers and bring an extra 100 grand to the table because that's what everyone else is prepared to do?
Right. Yep.
It does. Those are the net symptoms at the end of the day.
Yep.
I get it. Low interest rates are great, and we all want to lock them in. And dude, if you're paying that much over the appraised value and guaranteeing it cash, that ain't equity, son. Not until your next door neighbor does the same thing.
That's the deal.
That is called future casting.
I do think about like just where the mindset for some people was this time 2 years ago. Just the conversations we're having and the people backing out of the market and being like, I had these clients, they walked away from a house because the appraisal dropped 10 grand short. And this was June of 2020.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh no. Right? Like it just didn't make any
this
sense.
This is just
at
a
that
real
time.
estate pyramid scheme.
Yes.
Or
That's
Ponzi scheme.
This is the
giant
Madoff market.
Yeah, we had a client who locked in a build job last year, and he was, him and his partner broke up, and he's like, yeah, I'm not going to buy the house anymore. We're like, dude, you locked in last year's prices, bro. Just close on this thing and then flip it.
Sell it.
Flip that thing, dude. You're already going to get 20%
He's like,
return.
no. I'm like,
I've got a listing. I
Bro,
got a listing.
sign it to me.
I got a listing coming
builders don't let that happen.
next week. That's the same thing, dude. It's the exact same thing. Like they bought a couple of years ago and somebody across the street sold, and he's like, is that number right? And I called the agent, and while we were talking about the week, we were talking about another house neighborhood got listed at some absurd price, and they both closed in about a week. And we're just like sitting there. As soon as those things close, he's like, I need pictures this week because we're going the second those are closed, and I have those.
This is actually a super good point, because as interest rates rise, get like the conversations you've been having with people, if you're an agent right now in this market, where they're like, I would sell right now, but I have nowhere to go, and these prices are ridiculous, and I'm not going to go compete and bring all this extra cash to closing just so I can move to a smaller place. Imagine if that same seller could get the same price for their home, pay a higher interest rate, and not have to bring extra cash to the table in 6 months from now. Bro, that's where the inventory is going to come from. You're going to come from the people who are catching the tail end of this wave, where they can still get exponentially more for their homes than they could a few years ago, but they're not having to bring extra cash to the closing table, guarantee appraisals and all this type of stuff. That offsets the fact that they might be paying 1 point higher in interest. So that's where you'll see a flood of inventory come on the market. People may be making sensible decisions and unwinding their asset position.
I can't
to get
wait
into a new home.
I can't wait for more inventory and high interest rates, because I've got so many great programs that you can help buyers who are like, oh, interest rates are too high.
Dude, you're living proof of this. You made an offer on a home late last year.
Yep, that I should have bought.
No. But you'll do the same thing, right? You are the prototypical person in this demographic. That didn't work out. The sellers wanted you to jump through hoops, right? For no reason. Whenever interest rates tick up, you'll gladly pay a little bit more in interest to not have to go and get down on a couple knees in front of the seller who carries all the weight in the conversation. And you'll still be able to unload your asset for a hell of a lot more than you bought it for.
Yes.
There's a million people out there just like you.
This is the problem that I've had, and I brought this up on our team call on Tuesday, and I said, look, guys, like, everyone's talking about, prices are too high. And if you need to sell and buy, well, guess what? Your home is worth more money than it's ever been. So you're complaining that prices are too high, but when you go to sell, do you want a high price or low price?
Kind of a circular argument.
So naturally, the rise up in equity should offset the rise up in price that you're buying, because most people in most sell and buy situations typically transfer almost 100% of that equity capture into that move up property. So we should be doing that in the sell buy situation. The problem is that most real estate agents are 5 years less in this business. So they've only experienced this great market. So they're not used to seeing, I remember selling houses where people had to write checks to get out of their house, right? I remember a gentleman wrote a $45,000 check to get out of his house in Little Elm because he was commuting to Fort Worth and back. And he's like, it's worth writing this $45,000 check because my commute time round trip is almost 3.5 to 4 hours long. And it's causing stress in my relationship with not just my wife, but my children that I don't get to spend time with. And he's like, it's worth writing this $45,000 check.
The guy's probably heard every audiobook.
Just tired of it.
So here,
I get it, dude.
So here, if you as the expert advisor, we're not being expert advisors in this. We're being overpaid chauffeurs.
100%.
Right. And thus the reason why we're seeing, you see, companies coming in and trying to disrupt this and take your commissions away. It's because you're not being an expert, and you go in and show them, all right, how much equity do we have? If we were to go put all that equity into this house that is now worth $300,000 more, what is the actual payment? Because all that matters is what is the payment on that house.
Yeah.
That's all that matters.
As far as your day-to-day, that's all that matters. And that's such a good point. And this is, as far as actionable advice goes, that's why it's important to understand, maybe not get as deep as we do sometimes, but like understand the nuances of how these things work, because like your career is contingent. I promise you, your career is contingent long-term on you just advising people to do the right thing. It's the same thing that I just did a panel in November or December. And I was invited to speak on it.
Sounds like a bragger.
Like a humble brag. It was like
like
an office panel. I don't think it wasn't like national.
Either, November, December. It's like I just
like
do so many. I don't even know.
The national panel is the end of January.
Exactly. Right. But one of the questions was like, what are your best objection handlers for people that are like, I don't really want to list over the holidays? And I was so taken aback by that. And I just like kind of said to everybody, I was like, I don't have an objection handler for that. Like, I don't give a shit if you list during the holidays or in the spring or whatever. I just want to do right by you. Like, I want to advise you well. Like, if your, objection is I would list during the holidays, but I'm afraid that people won't like my Christmas decorations, well, then I could advise you on how to, do that. But if you're like, I'm just super busy right now, I have a ton of family coming over, and I just don't want to list right now. Like, I'm not a desperate enough agent that I need this business today. I would rather not soil that relationship, and I would advise you in a way that makes you comfortable and speaks to your situation, and go, dude, let's just do it in February then. Like, that's no problem. So I'll be in the business then. And it's kind of similar in this situation. Like, you don't need to figure out how to work in this particular market. You just need to understand this particular market and know how to advise people to do what's best for them.
Well, if you price in any market, you price it correctly, it's going to sell.
Sure.
Even during the 08 recession, you go price. I mean, guess what? During the 08 through 2011 deal, there were still multiple offers happening.
Sure.
Right?
At the right price points.
Absolutely. And so with that is I shot a video today that's going out to my database, and one of the questions that I put in there, or one of the kind of response that I have, is that are we going to see what was the traditional real estate market trend, right? So like, everyone took their home off in October, or in September because school started back up. So you started to see inventory levels decline. Then you saw a little bit of a jump in November because in December sales were typically good.
Yeah.
And then, of course, they took it off in December because of holidays. And then January definitely was down because January is the most depressing month typically, because that's when everyone gets their credit card bills from the month before. And then you start to see the rise back up in inventory February, March, April, May, because you got your spring selling season. So the question is, with the way everyone is now searching online, and home buyers are moving more fluid now, because we're seeing, I'm seeing people just demanding remote jobs, and they're not going back to work.
That might be, young Jesse, a whole another series of articles you can pull up. Another one of the blessings, not another one of maybe the few blessings the pandemic has brought us, is migration patterns are going to change dramatically, and that the effects on the housing market, I think, will actually be very positive.
So you have that, kind of schools is somewhat being more fluid with everything going on. So
School sucks anyway.
it does. Definitely sucks. I mean, there's got to be some changes on that. In fact, I'm putting Asher into a different school just because I don't want him in public school, right? But it's with do we no longer see a true traditional spring selling season, because we're starting to see more and more of that.
Brother.
So are we starting to see? Theron stopped in our office the other day. Says
He stopped in ours. I was out to lunch. I got his brochures. I appreciate you, brother. Theron just started his own home warranty company, and I'm super proud of that dude.
Yeah, maybe we got something that works with him.
We might have to do a little partnership there.
Absolutely. So,
the fuck is your profile picture?
Yeah, I'm glad we got that big on the screen.
Yeah, I don't even know what that is. You're listening to the audio.
You're watching,
this,
so
you need to go to our
yourself
Facebook
in the
page.
comments before we end this.
Yes. So from that, are we going to see those traditional markets starting to change and adapt to where we almost are more constant level of a real estate season, at least here in Texas, right? Because up north, maybe a lot of times when you got 12 inches of snow, you're like, yeah, I'm not.
If you remove or at least not, you'll never fully remove because people want to be near family and friends and things like that. But if you minimize the geographic implications of making major changes in your life, like moving and buying a house, I think you'll see a much more moderate, less volatile housing market.
Well, look, the reality is most people probably spend more time at work or doing work things than they do with their family. Work is the biggest driver for why people live where they live. So if that all of a sudden becomes a more fluid situation that it already has, and employees probably have more leverage than they've ever had before in the market, just because everybody needs someone.
Yeah.
Right. And that's the other thing that's come from this, that it has given some power back to people, like Nick saying, demanding working remotely. Like there is a little bit more leverage for certain things like that. And we know it works now, right? Like people can be effective working from home.
Yeah.
There's, I think, some traditional metrics that we've gauged that stuff by.
Yeah.
And companies have seen that they can probably lower their bottom line by not having to have physical spaces. So
it doesn't even necessarily mean, and I think you're right, a lot of people will work from home. It doesn't even necessarily mean that the future is everybody works from home. You might see a lot more community type workspaces where people work remotely, but they still work in an office, and it actually works for productivity because they're networking with people from other industries and changing, swapping ideas. It'd be cool as shit, right?
Yeah.
Like, wouldn't it be cool to work next to people in other industries and get ideas for like what's working for them and stuff?
Look, I have a prediction that we see more of that. Plus, we see, because look, restaurant industry, labor shortage, et cetera. We see retail and commercial change drastically, right? So we see smaller retail spaces going up, even restaurants, going more to a drive-through and delivery style model.
Ghost kitchens are huge right now. The quality, we got to work out the ghost kitchen thing, guys. I think that's a mental thing.
So I think those big commercial spaces are only going to go to the Halloween spirit shop stores.
Yeah.
And then,
what if it was just 6 Halloween spirit shop stores lined up year round?
Well, good. Then they have to start competing with each other and stop giving me the same crappy Halloween outfits.
And maybe a dumb cape wouldn't cost $94 that I can only use once, and I tear it because I'm drunk.
Yes. So look, I think there's a lot to this, and I think that really the main, as you listen into these shows, is becoming that go-to experts, right? So the main thing is like you're probably not going to get as detailed as Brian. I'm going to tell you that the majority of people are not detailed as Brian. But if you can be like, you take a little bit of what Brian's saying, you take what I'm saying, you take what Matt's saying, and you're having these conversations with people that are inquiring. They're like, Brian, it's not the great time to buy. This is the worst time. I just read the buyer confidence report, and it's telling me it's not a good time to buy. And then you say, well, Nick, when is a good time to buy?
Yeah. You can always have a reason for why it's not a good time to buy. It's the same time as the time it is to sell. We tell sellers this all the time. When's the best time to sell?
Today.
When it makes sense for you.
No, today. I always say
today. It's always today. If you don't sell today, bro, trust me.
You're not going to
like the consequences.
We don't have a crystal ball. I don't know what's going to happen tomorrow.
Yeah, exactly. I can tell you today,
you
could sell your home.
Yeah, right now. I'll make you a cash offer.
All right.
So
I got one for you guys this week. You want to wind it down first?
Sure.
You want to go first? Okay. I thought about this one a lot.
MortgageMikeOfTexas.com.
.com. HomewardDFW.com, Homeward Property Management. Check us out. This one I'm interested because I usually have ones that are goofy, but I do want to hear your thoughts on this because I think there's going to be a lot of judgment going around the room. What do you realistically, what do you think is the biggest animal you could beat up?
Oh my God. I'm convinced. So I've said this before. I'm convinced I could take on any dog that weighs half as much as me.
So any dog that weighs about
Any dog weighs under 110.
Bullshit.
Okay.
No, absolutely not. I would pay
You
money.
think you could beat a 90-pound pit bull?
I would absolutely pay money to watch that right now.
I think
See, I told you
think
the
I
judgment.
I think I
agree.
could break its neck.
No, oh, no.
How are you going to get a hold of its neck?
I'm going to
dude?
wrap my arm around it, like wrestler style, and then I'm going to suplex it off the top rope. It can't defend
Bro,
itself.
I will
It's a-
tell you this.
maybe a cat.
As a joke, I threw some poppers, like those firework poppers, in a general vicinity yesterday towards my 13-year-old German Shepherd, and the quickness on her was electric. Like, she jumped up. She even saw him coming. We were doing a bits. We were having fun. She was throwing some at me. No, like, her quickness to get out of the way. You can't just snap a healthy pit bull's neck.
No, absolutely not.
They're so quick.
No.
I might be wrong.
You don't have the
There's-
stamina to keep up the strength to keep. Absolutely not.
There's no way.
Again,
It would be over for that dog so fast.
I see. I have a different.
I'm full of shit.
Yeah.
I get scared when animals just run at you fast that have any kind of size, right?
I'm telling you, a cat is the cat. I don't even
You
think
think
we
it's
can
a
take a
cat?
squirrel.
I would tell you, I petted a cat on Super Bowl Sunday that I had never met before, and even me, I was kind of like, I don't like cats already.
Gee, pet or petted?
Pet,
Pretty sure
petted?
pet.
I don't know
Or
what it
pat
is.
it. Did you pat it?
I patted.
Pat?
it. What do
Patted?
you think, young Jesse?
I think it's like
I
moose
think
and
it's-
moose.
What do
That's
you?
true.
What's the biggest animal you could comfortably beat up?
Oh, man, I don't know. I love animals.
Did you see Theron's response? Anything that weighs under, say,
Oh,
like
I didn't see
180 with no opposable thumbs, he can definitely take them out.
Bro, 180-pound
Cat.
bobcat doesn't have opposable thumbs. Are
No,
you guys
no
are
way.
way underestimating the
Dude,
power of
they
Mother
would
Nature.
bite your throat.
Okay.
so quick.
Let me put one. This is still
Actually,
controversial.
hold on, real quick. Can we just start doing a show of this?
This
That
is way more fun.
I would get rid of
Dude.
the real estate stuff if we could just go
Sounds
live.
like a pay-per-view
Yeah,
event.
if we could just go live with questions like these.
I'm
and
down
just-
to do a whole separate podcast.
Every
We just
day.
talk about
Every
this
day.
every day. All right. I
You think you could take out a coyote?
I don't know how many coyotes I've seen up. What
I
are they
don't
about?
know.
Weigh about 60 pounds?
They would go get some dynamite.
I could
know.
beat
That's what I'm saying.
I could.
Are
I
the
could-
meals watching this? I feel like they
I
know
could
exactly
beat up
they would
some
know.
coyotes.
Could
Oh,
you could you
okay.
beat up an eagle?
Okay, that's what I was
No,
about to
dude.
say.
Their talons would rip
I
you
will tell
apart.
you right
true.
now. I am comfortable in saying
You know how
that
big those things are?
I
Like a
could
big-ass
beat up
eagle.
any bird that is not a state or national bird.
A hawk?
A hawk, done. Bro, I've seen a hawk up close. Or not that. You lock me in an elevator with a hawk, that thing's done inside 2 rounds. There's no way.
Well, yes, in an elevator.
no way.
Because you've got him confined and he can't get his
Well,
wings
he's
out
got
there.
me confined. A bald eagle, I've seen those in Alaska. They're huge. No way.
You know they have
Bald
them out
eagle
at-
would rip me to shreds. A hawk, I feel pretty comfortable. A
Have you
turkey is
have
about
you
as
seen
big as I
the-
can do.
Have you seen the bald eagles out at White Rock Lake?
I saw that article.
Yeah, his
The nest blew down last
Yeah.
night.
Oh, that's so sad.
Man.
I feel like that's my size comfort level. You put me in a room this size with a turkey. He's trapped in there with me,
Do you
not
think
the
you
other
could-
way
Do you
around.
think you could? Do you think you could defeat a 50-pound goat?
No.
I don't
A
know. The
goat?
goats
No.
are quick enough. I probably got better lateral movement than a goat. You could just scare it; they fall down,
They
right?
do. Well,
The-
that's
the
the
fe-
fainting
the sleep- the
goats.
sleeping fainting goats would be.
Yeah, fainting goats.
I just want to hang out.
But
around them.
they're tricking you to get you. They're like, oh, I got this one, and then they got it.
I feel like goats are too okay with their energy. Like a dog the size of a goat is just, if you piss it off, he's gonna try. I don't feel like goats are aggressive. I
Maybe
feel like
like
you could at least get a few shots.
Maybe like a sheep.
You could at least win a split
goats have
decision
those
against the goat.
horns.
We can't.
Yeah.
We
What
can't.
about
Take,
a
we can't
sheep?
take the goat's personality into account and then negate the hawk's ability to fly. Like you're just
True.
taking attributes for certain ones and
Okay.
applying them
I mean,
to
if
your
we're
logic.
we got to set some ground rules in. If the hawk can just fly away, then all he's got to do is land a few shots and win on points. That's not really a fight.
Hmm.
This is a fight to the death. He can't fly away.
Okay.
He can only fly as high as the ceiling, which I could still jump up and hit him, and he couldn't hit me from there. So, and then I just wear him out.
I mean, it sounds like you're trapping him first to fight him.
I would
Versus
have
if you
to.
were walking down the street And all of a sudden, this hawk is like, look, he's going to pick a fight with you.
See, dude, Theron's
Theron.
pinning goats to the ground on the reg. What do you think?
But
you
those
could
are
beat?
domesticated goats.
Oh.
Oh yeah, those
As
aren't feral
opposed to the
goats.
rabid wild goats
There
that we
gotta be
experience, like
Somewhere like in Estonia.
what are you in the mountains of
This guy-
Nepal? Like where in the fuck are you getting attacked by goats?
What do you think then? What's the biggest thing you could beat up?
Chicken.
Yeah, probably chicken.
Bro, if you
rabbit.
can't
No,
do
we
it,
can
chicken-
I can take a
Have
chicken.
you ever seen a chicken? You
I've
don't
look. This
What
was the
about a
younger
big
days,
ass
so I
chicken?
don't want everybody to come after me. But I did not do this. But I watched an old man farmer snatch a chicken by the top of its head and turn that chicken into nothing.
Yeah,
How
that's
do you
what you
think
do.
we eat shit like that? Like
Yeah.
somebody's got to be beating them in fights. Like we don't eat lion for lunch. That's bananas.
Yeah,
Domesticated.
probably. I don't know. Like,
I'd still run from a big rat. When I was in New York, I saw one.
I
that's
wouldn't
so-
fight a rat.
I was
they're
out
tiny.
on that thing.
Do you know
dude.
why you wouldn't fight a rat? It's the same reason I
so
wouldn't.
gross.
That's why.
They're
Yeah.
so
If you when you
gross.
win the fight, you really
Diseases.
lose because you splatter it everywhere, and nobody wants that. Like it's
Yeah.
the same reason I wouldn't fight a cockroach. They're disgusting.
Is this the pay-per-view event? We all try to grab a chicken.
I like how Nick Loki tried to get out of putting some out there. He just made fun of our answers.
That can be our next
course
live.
you
That
did.
could be our
I'm
next live.
I'm telling you,
event.
I could
That's
not
right.
take a dog. I've had a dog bite my.
Well, dogs
bite
are
through my
there's too much of a
hands.
spectrum of dogs. There's so many different types.
Hey, Nick.
I think you
Yeah.
could beat
Theron
up.
had a message for you.
Yeah.
I think
I definitely would. You're right there, and I would definitely. I never could,
I think Nick could beat up most big lizards.
for sure.
Like-
The big. I don't. They,
Bro, we were in
What's the one that
Cancun
has
and
the
they told us to
disease?
get
That's
away
the
from
one
that
I think-
iguana.
I
or
bet Nick
kill
could
it.
beat that
iguanas.
one iguana up though.
I mean, if I can
That
get
iguana's
it
all
fast
muscle,
enough,
bro.
and then you throw it, then that's it. I mean,
Dude, those
Do
things-
iguanas'
those
tails
things
pop
can
off too? They get
haul,
away
bro.
too? Or
Could
is
you-
that chameleon?
all right. Could you take a monkey?
No.
What
No.
kind?
A monkey?
No,
like a little
how,
monkey?
Is he my size or a little smaller?
I mean, a
No, a one your size would rip your arms off and beat you to
a
death.
chimp-
Yeah, that's what I think.
A chimpanzee.
I don't think
A chimpanzee that's like the size of this table?
chimpanzees.
What
weigh
about like an
180 pounds,
orangutan?
I think I got a 50-50 chance.
No, you do not.
He'd have to
You
be
do not.
half my size. If he's exactly half my size.
No,
No,
no.
absolutely.
This is where I'll switch.
Because I think they're twice as strong.
I think a 30-pound monkey could kill you, dude.
I
They're
thought-
so.
how much more
ridiculous.
stronger are they?
They're
I mean,
so ridiculous.
I was trying to get equal footing. If he was
They've
half
got-
my size and he's equally strong, I have reach and we're the same
There's-
strength. I
there-
could never beat up a monkey that's my size.
There are a couple of stories that you can Google. One specifically, like that happened in the Midwest, where a lady had a
They're
chimpanzee. as a
fighting
pet.
monkeys?
She had a chimpanzee as a pet.
Didn't it rip her
Oh,
face off?
dude.
Ripped
Rip
her
her-
arm. It ripped
Yeah.
her hands and her face off.
And it-
Okay,
he
so
beat
it
her-
wasn't
and he
really
beat
a
her with
pet
it.
then. He just
Well, it was fine.
she
until
thought it
wasn't.
was a pet.
It was fine
He
until
was
it
a sleeper cell.
Yeah.
It's like the dudes that have the pet bears. Y'all seen those?
Yeah,
What
that's
the
stupid.
hell?
That ends
Dude,
wrong every time.
I hate
Fucking-
those YouTube
It's gotta be
videos
Russians
where
or
they play
something.
the Sarah McLachlan music
Oh,
whenever
dude.
like they meet up after a while. Like 30 minutes after
Sarah
that lion
McLachlan.
kills that person.
Lions
Like
keeping true
true.
with the '90s style.
Every
in the Super
time.
Bowl. Let's get the hell out of here. What are we even doing at this point?
this is
Yeah.
fun. I like our new
I want to
set.
do this every day.
I like
I do.
our new set.
Every day. And
People
the
need
new
to start
set-
leaving us questions. Like, start leaving us questions you want us to debate at the end of the show.
Yeah, help me
see,
out.
that would
I'm
be
the one bringing
good.
all the good questions.
That would be good.
Darren, you got
Just
a couple. Fire those off.
Put them in the comments
You know
for
what
the
we
show
could
next
do?
time.
What we could do is every day we just go live with this, and you have one of those, those cards that for dinner time that brings
Oh,
up.
that'd be
It's
so
like this looks
good.
like a dinner time question,
It's like a little.
and then we just go back and forth.
Oh, if there's any games like that we could order that just have like
That'd be good.
just random uncomfortable questions in it.
Well, you guys can do this the whole time next week because unfortunately,
Yeah.
I will not be here.
I'll
I'll
be
be
here.
all volumed up watching Netflix,
Oh, that's true.
getting
Mega
my
Man.
herded.
Maybe we can have Lady stream you in.
Ooh.
Oh, you
Stream
can
me
join
in while
us?
I'm messed up in the.
Yes.
Oh, that'd be
Oh,
so
see,
fun.
that's what I'm saying.
Didn't I tell you what bit I was doing when I was doing my hair last time?
Oh no.
They just give you a bunch of Valium, and then they just
Sounds fun.
They give you just keep hitting you with lidocaine while they're doing the thing, and they set you up with like
Dude, that shit burns.
it's just
too.
Netflix, and it's 10 hours of this thing. And so I just kept playing the same episode of Friends over and over and over again, just to see if the doctors would start to be like,
Dude,
"The fuck are
gotta
you
stop
doing?"
this shit.
Like, I
He's
just
lost
kept because I didn't care at all. Like it was all the same to me, and I just on a repeat for like 10 straight hours. I was just playing the same episode. It was hysterical. Probably do the same thing again.
Oh,
All right,
All right.
mortgagemikeoftexas.com, homewarddfw.com. Go check those websites out. Tell us what you think. Use those people because they're awesome.
They are awesome because they're us.
yeah,
Jesse,
they are.
make us leave this place.
When are we going to do the outros?
Thanks for watching the show today. Make sure if you're watching this on Facebook, you head over to our group, the only real estate group we're being a part of, so you can watch the extended conversation. If you're watching this on YouTube, make sure to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. And if you listen on the Apple Podcast, leave us a review. We'd really like it. So just do it. Do it.
do that over there. Go to this one, then go to that one. Thanks.